Hey, it's Cliff, and I want to talk a little bit about my initial thoughts of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, this isn't a video on Trump. I already know there's going to be comments, oh, but Trump, blah, 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 blah. We can talk about Trump in a different video. This video is about Kamala Harris and my initial thoughts on her. So for the longest time, Kamala did not come out with any of her specific policies. She actually waited a day before the debates to put her policies on her website. She did run through a few of her policies when she was doing her rallies, but there wasn't anything concrete. People were kind of confused on what she actually wanted to do. She wants to implement the first ever federal ban on price gouging, which specifically as she goes into these policies talking about price controls. She wants to give a $50,000 tax deduction for people starting a new business, which is up from what it is right now is $5,000. Can you stop licking your balls in my video? Anyway, she wants to expand the child tax credit up to $3,600, which would be from $2,000. And she would raise the corporate tax rate to 28%, which would be from 21%. So when it comes to a lot of these policies, I'm not really a big fan. When we look at things like putting price controls on our groceries, that's just going to cause shortages, and I don't think the government should be stepping in and telling people what the price of certain groceries should be. I think that's just a bad move. There's other things that she wants to do, like implement unrealized gains, which makes absolutely no sense to me at all. It seems like it would just incentivize people to not invest in the United States and pull all their money out and leave the US, but that's her policies. So as I'm thinking about who I'm going to vote this year, I really had to sit down and consider, like, why would someone vote for Kamala Harris? So far, this is the only explanation that I could come up with that really makes sense, so I'm gonna give that to you now. So I grew up in a middle-class family. That is not a Kamala Harris joke. I actually did grow up in a middle-class family.
I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother was hardworking. She raised me and my sister Maya. She saved up, and it was only by the time I was a teenager that she could afford to actually buy her first home.
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard. She was able to finally save up enough money to buy our first house when I was a teenager. I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager.
When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. I grew up a middle-class kid.
It's a very small farm town. Not a lot of hope in this small town. I can just, be honest with you. It's pretty much low income, or maybe you're in the middle class if you're lucky. Just to put it in perspective, there was a trailer park in the back of my house. We heard fightings and the cops were there all the time. A lot of craziness that went on there. The only hope for people living in this town, and specifically me, as I look back going to high school, the only thing that people really held on to was to get out of this town and move somewhere that they could make a better income, have a better life, and just forget about where they grew up. So again, there wasn't a lot of opportunity in this town. You were doing good if you got a factory job. There was one factory there, Quaker Oats, if you guys remember the oatmeal guy. I'll put a picture of him on the screen if I can. That was the one factory which happened to close down a couple years back and is just wreaking havoc on this town even more. But that's pretty much all you could look forward to. You could work at the factory, Quaker Oats, or maybe you work at Walmart or McDonald's or something like that, some kind of equivalent to retail or fast food. Not a lot of hope going on there. So as you can imagine, the people that stay in this town, there's a lot of desperation. They want to get ahead, but realistically for poor people, it's very hard to get ahead unless they seek employment elsewhere. But a lot of people don't want to move. They don't want to leave their families. They don't want to, sometimes traveling somewhere can be scary for some people. For me, it wasn't. I completely left the town immediately. I was not staying in that shithole. But, for a lot of people, just moving to a different state is terrifying for them. So they stay in this town. I think that creates a lot of depression because there's no opportunity again. They're in a really bad lifestyle. So when I see the habits of some of these people, they turn to buying lottery tickets. And I know you're gonna say, Cliff, This is an investment channel. We all know that lottery tickets are stupid. You shouldn't put money into lottery tickets. And you're absolutely right. The chances of you winning in the lottery is pretty slim. Probably, it's not worth wasting your money on. You'd be putting your money in the stock market, S&P, something simple, or maybe a business or whatever, and you'd make so much more money than just blowing your money on lottery tickets. You're right. But what happens in these small towns is you're in a cycle of desperation. You don't see a way out. You never left. Maybe you're getting older. There's no opportunity to advance anywhere. And you just don't feel like there's a lot of hope. So people have their vices, they turn to lottery tickets. Now, those same people that are turning to lottery tickets, they know that they are not going to win. They know absolutely that they're throwing their money away. Maybe they make like a fraction of their money back, and that's like a good time. Those people know that they're not going to hit the millions. They're not going to be super rich one day. But what they're doing is they're buying the opportunity to think about what their life could be for a little bit. So let's say you've been working 80 hours a week and you're trying to get ahead. You're still not able to get ahead. You're running off Monster and coffee just to get you by. And as you make your trip to the gas station to pick up your caffeine, you stop by, you get you a $5 scratch off. What that does, it allows them to dream for a few minutes of peace to think about what their life could be as they scratch off these tickets. They know that they're wasting their money, but it gives them the opportunity to think about what their life could be. That's just the reality of what I saw growing up. And to be honest, as these factories leave that location and there's even less jobs now than there was when I grew up, it's just getting worse. So back to Kamala Harris. When she comes out on her rallies, the first thing she does, she says, I'm going to give you all of this stuff. I'm going to give you $25,000 as a first-time home buyer. I'm going to give you $10,000 as a deduction every year on that house for your mortgage. I'm going to make it so your groceries are affordable again. I'm going to do everything I can to increase your income so maybe you don't have to work as much. I am going to give you all of these things and your life is going to be so much better. Now, these people, they don't have time to research these policies. They're working 80 hours a week. Again, they don't have time to actually go out and get into the economics of her plans and how is this actually going to affect me? Is giving me a $25,000 credit for my first house going to inflate all of the prices of the houses around me to the point that it was kind of pointless and now we're just paying tax money and spinning our wheels. And not to mention, my income is shit, so how am I gonna afford the mortgage once you give me the first time home buyer credit? She doesn't take interviews to talk about the negative side of her plans. She is controlled. She will only do CNN debates. She will only do specific interviews with people that are going to be on her side. Look at the last interview she did. She did a scheduled, completely performance-based interview with Oprah. The entire thing was propaganda. It was set up in a way that just made her look good. She's not gonna go out there to a real journalist and have somebody critique her plan and have a real conversation about economics. So back to the people. They don't have time to research. They see that this person is going to give me all of these things, and I kind of think of her and voting for her the same way it is for people buying lottery tickets. It just gives them a second to dream for a minute. Now, if they do vote her in, most likely she's not going to be able to pass any of these policies. There are going to be huge battles going on. It's not really going to matter at the end of the day. But I hope this explains where those people are coming from and maybe shed some light on why people would vote for her, even though her policies are terrible.